Candles lit,
Yes.
and we're ready to just talk. So we have a weekly check-in, and most of the time we end up in the deepest, most beautiful dives. So we decided to record our check-in this week and see how it feels. And it may or may not be helpful to people who are contemplating these same levels of health and care, but may not have this kind of soul relationship right now where they can kind of go a little bit deeper. So maybe it's helpful. So how are you?
Let's see. Well, today I feel good. And I think what has helped me feel good thus far is I've been sitting by the window all day. I've moved my workspace all the way to the window so that I can access fresh air and sun. And today has just been a wonderful reminder about life by just watching the weather. Like one minute it can be beautiful and bright and sunny. And then the next minute you look and it's like, whoa, what are those gusts of wind over there? Oh, wait a minute, those are dark clouds. So I'm just reveling in that today, the beauty of change and just watching it and being okay with I have no control.
I love it so much because I'm in this pretty intensive training right now. And it's like the least organized training I've ever been part of, not in a rude way, but in a way of the woman who's leading it is just flowing. She doesn't have this set or that set. It's it's just in flow. And so the things that come up are not scripted, are not part of a plan or a syllabus. She's not trying to get through things. We basically just sit and ask questions of consciousness and inner voice and intuition and brain states and things like that. Okay. For 2 or 3 hours a day for a few weeks. And then we'll be trained as inner voice facilitators. Okay. So this is something I've been working on the past few weeks. And I've heard the concept before of the emotions being like the weather. And it was sort of at an arm's distance because I think I wasn't ready to actually, it's like my system hadn't downshifted enough to actually have enough space and pause and just kind of my own connection in order to actually have that little bit of space when an emotion does rise to be able to name it like weather and see it like weather, right? Tears are rain, wind is breath, a thunderstorm. Now it's sunny again, just as I'm talking. There's literally dark clouds and sun. And then thunder as anger. So I've heard this before. This is not the first time I've heard it, but because I'm in this intensive training and inner voice and intuition work often brings up a lot of emotion. I'm training with Jess Lively, and she will just say, I love you, I support you, I've got you, it's just the weather, while you're experiencing that crying or that laughing, really whatever you're experiencing. And so it's not lost on me that you would start our just check-in and I'm noticing the weather, because my dear Rita, me too. In a whole new way. And I wrote about this in the newsletter, because I can't move, quote unquote, I can't go for my walks, I can't go for my runs. Well, this is how I discharge. And in the Center for Mind Body Medicine, we do a lot of shaking, right? And because mammals and animals, they shake, they discharge energy after they've been in a fight or an argument. Not an argument like us, but a fight, they go at it, they wrestle, and they discharge. And so we learn to shake in mind body medicine as a tool for discharge. So that's external. So I know shaking and dancing works. I know I've done yoga. I know I've gone for walks. I know I've done everything to leave the body. And now I'm literally sitting at home in this like super intensive training that I just randomly signed up for. The day it was announced, I just heard yes through my whole body. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And now I'm sitting here experiencing all kinds of weather. And this is the difference, because you and I are so Gemini, we're so passionate, we're so loving. We get caught in the weather. And we get caught in other people's weather. And so this is the first time in my life where I'm just like, oh, this is my storm, or my thunder, or my rainstorm, or my breath, my wind. And then it moves out. And over the summer, I'm gonna tell one more little story, and then I want to hear from you. Is like, okay, so I did the Shakti Ayurveda school, and in the live training, when was that? The summer? I can't even remember. Time is so weird now. Whenever I went to Charlotte,
Summer, fall.
it was summer. Okay. I had an experience where I asked Katie Silcox a question, and it like activated something in me that brought up all this emotion, and I shoved it back down because I was embarrassed. Right. So I like shared in front of like this huge room of like maybe 300, 200 women. I don't even know how many people, tons of people looking at me. I asked Katie a question. She answered it in her way, but what I heard was very activating. And so I had all this emotion and I shoved it down. And then there was a break in the program, and a woman came up to me in the hallway, and she looked at me and she held me and she was like, "Are you okay?" And then all of a sudden I started to get tears. I started to close like this, like shut my shoulders shut. And she was like, hold on, relax, open. And at that point I was like suffocating on the grief and the tears and the shame. Everything was holding right here. And I opened, and she just sat with me and breathed, right? And I started bawling. All that shame of speaking in front of all those people and like not feeling like we really connected. Like she didn't really answer the question. It's not blaming her. It's just, anyway, it was just like, it was in there, and it had been a weekend of embodiment and moving and all of these things. And I was alone. I didn't really know anybody there. I was staying alone. I really had isolated myself. And it was like a 30 to 45-minute walk from where I was staying to the training. So I was having all this really just like deep alone time. So this woman is just holding me, Michelle, and I breathed, and a minute, maybe not even later, the whole storm had passed. And I felt lighter, and I felt so much love. It was like when the actual emotion of the shame and embarrassment that I was shoving was released, I could just open and like see people, not try to isolate myself, not try to close down, not try to hide, but I could just be loving with who was there and what was happening. And so because I had that one experience months ago, again, it sort of dripped into what I'm hearing Jess Lively say now, and then what I'm experiencing daily with this intensity and this intimacy that my little primary family has right now, given being home. So very long-winded stories of connection and synchronicity. And I am just so not in control of any of this. Like the plan and the will and the following and the being led and being guided is just flowing in ways that I could never have planned or mapped out. That makes my ego and the mind and my planning heart feel sad. But the truth is, if you look back, there's just layer upon layer. So what do you think about all that? How does that resonate with you?
Make sure you keep the timer, because I'm sitting here drawing as you were talking. So one of the practices that I've picked up, being part of the Little Om community, and also being a student in different courses in Little Om, there's this concept of, looking over your life over stepping stones.
Hold on, Rita. I have a visitor. 1 second. What?
No problem.
Can we end break time early?
I will come and find you when I'm done. Yes. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I want to give you full attention. And he's like
Yes,
knocking and
thank you.
whispering.
Stepping stones. And so as you were talking, I started with last April when I attended a spring Lola retreat. And one of the opening exercises that we did as a group was we were sitting, just to give the audience who may be listening a visual. The room that we was in was this beautiful, cute little wooden cottage, just something out of a children's book. It was cozy. There was blankets everywhere. We were all on the floor. And the day started off very cloudy, misty. Some would use the word gloom because it was dark. It was very dark and heavy. It felt, as we all entered the room as women, as a group, I could intuit that we all were, with the weather, carrying whatever heavy emotion into the room as we soaked up on our way from. And one of the opening exercises, going into the midday, is that Pleasance, you notice, just like that, the weather had completely made a 360. Yeah. Now, we didn't notice yet, but you noticed, and you used that as like this opportunity. Now, again, obviously you couldn't have planned it because I don't think you were into that much of magical, but maybe you were. But anywho, I mean, you used that opportunity to like draw our attention out to the window, because the room had a window that literally was floor to ceiling, and you had us pause, look out, and notice the sun came out, the skies were clear. And the sun was radiating so beautifully that the color scheme of what was outside completely lit up and changed. And you were like, okay, women, let's go outside. And that exercise was really life-changing for me, because for the first time, I noticed a change in the weather. And I know that to some people who may be listening, like, so what? But that, like, to me, it was medicinal, because it was a moment to come out of my mind, racing thoughts, whatever rat race treadmill I was on, and like notice the beauty of nature, notice the weather changing, and like we were doing movement with you. You got us to movement, and just that noticing and that practice of the weather was medicinal, because it helped give us a toolbox for noticing those changes and emotions in ourselves. That happened last April, and here we are building on that a year later. If it wasn't for that experience a year before, in terms of like that first initial seed that you planted of, all right, pause what we had planned. Look, ladies, look outside. Look, the day has changed just like that. And let's go out into the change, and let's move with the change, and let's put some language on the change. And what do we see? I've been carrying that with me, and here we are a year later, and I was able to sit by the window all day and notice and like revel and reflect on those changes. But that was built off of a seed that was planted a year ago. And I'm so thankful, because again, that practice of noticing changes certainly resonates with me. We had this past Saturday, Pleasance is guiding a group of us through the book called The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and I had just joined the group. But one emotion that I learned from the talk that we did this week, the word resentment came up. And for the very first time, I'm 38 years old, and I really, for the very first time, I simply asked, and Pleasance was in the small group discussion, I asked the word to the small group of ladies. I said, hey, y'all, and again, that's interesting. You talked about embarrassment. It was interesting how in that moment this Saturday, I always was embarrassed to ask a woman about resentment, because in my own family, when I've seen anger expressed, it's like, don't ask about it. Like, don't bring it up. Don't mention it. I've even hidden from resentment myself in my life. But for this first time, this past Saturday, there was a small group of women, about 5, who were willing to talk me through resentment. And that talk, not that you all gave me the answer. Yeah. You shared your experiences of what it looked like in your life, and gave me language, and gave me some cues in the body. And so I've been able to take that into my week this week. And through taking moments to just watch the weather or taking moments to write, I'm just now at 38 unpacking resentment. So we're always learning.
How did it show up this week? Like, what was there, like an anger? Because we had talked about like resentment being build up or trapped anger that wasn't expressed. So over time it turned into resentment. How did that show up for you? Or like, what did you notice? Were you able to like release earlier before it got built up? Or did you notice it in someone else? Or like, what did you?
This week it's like, just like the beginning stages, right? So I was able to kind of grasp from Saturday's conversation. And this week I've just been writing about trying to tame what do I resent in my life. So to just keep it 100 with y'all in this talk, and so much of the displays of resentment that I saw in my life were women towards men. So just to set that stage, right? So that's where I'm beginning this week. And so all this week, I've just been writing on paper and drawing pictures about like, I resent the fact that, all my uncles, pretty much have either, inappropriately touched or, sexually have done something inappropriate with the women in our family. I was just writing, like, I resent that happened. And just like writing why I resent it. Resenting, I resent my dad, and this is just beginning, not that I want to judge them or anything, but I'm just getting it out. Like, what
name it.
Yeah, like, what do you think? So, I'm saying, I was writing on, this week I found myself, resenting the fact that my dad, really struggled with alcoholism. And it really tainted my childhood. And so I've just been writing, and I resent my boss for always trying to shut down women when they're speaking in a room. Like, I'm just writing down, again, this is not
good.
This is the only place where I knew how to begin, because when I was growing up as a little girl, I knew I could recognize, because also you talked about ways which I thought was equally beneficial. What ways do men can express anger that someone like myself may not be able to pick up on because of my initial exposure? So this week I've just been writing about my initial exposure, like, the issues as a woman, all the things I resent as, towards the key male figures in my life that I feel have hurt me back at that time. So I've just been writing about it, drawing pictures, drawing facial expressions, just to get it out of it feels like it's been sitting in my chest. So it feels good in my chest. And even in my breast, every now and then my breast gets sore and I don't know why. So I'm finding some soothing and some relief just by getting it on paper. And it'll be a continuation. I look forward to, again, just my continued community a little on people, my support, and then myself and the tools, like, a new Earth text is going to be one of my key tools to help me process and name resentment. But again, we don't, like, just like the weather, there are some climates that I have not experienced, and that's why travel is important, right? And that's why being stretched is important.
You know what I love? This reminds me of so many things. So first is, I'm going to find, it's in my bookshelf in my bedroom. So I'm not going to run and get it now, but there is a book called The Book of Qualities by Ruth Gelder. That's why I was looking up her last name when we were talking. Cause I remember, I'll text you a picture of it after of resentment, but she takes this huge range of qualities and puts a picture and then a poem about like the essence of what it is, from heartbreak to anger to distrust to resentment. Like, it's like this huge spread out. So I'll text you that and put a link for people into the notes. And then the other thing is, this week I was listening to the podcast, The Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and he had Sheryl Crow on. And what you just said about the breast and taking care of others, I think anyone who is interested in the connection between emotions and the physical body, and who doesn't want to read Louise Hay right now and kind of do all of that, which is totally fine. You can affirm yourself and do Louise Hay. which is great. But Cheryl talks about when she got breast cancer, she went on a deep dive. She worked with Cheryl Salzberg and a bunch of other meditation and healers, and started to learn about the pattern in women and breast issues, and how much it was about taking care of others, not expressing themselves. Like, they found some of these links. Again, I just thought it was super interesting because it's all of that I love, the connections between the mind, the body, disease of the mind, disease, not expressing emotions. And you know what would be so fun, Ree, is to do some kind of art, either together or just alone even. I just invite people, like I myself, I want to get a big sheet and put a word that maybe I haven't experienced. Like how you just said the climate, we haven't experienced all climates. And like, my question is like, is it because we didn't go there, or is it because we haven't allowed ourselves to go there?
I think both. And I think like the nature of me and your soul connection, right? Like you need both. And this is back to, because everybody's saying, we're all connected, but we need to go dive and talk about, okay, what does that look like every day? Well, that looks like, if I'm having a meltdown, like I can go in my phone and like call you and I trust that I can share any and everything with you in my life if I cannot grapple it myself. I am all about keeping it 100. And like one of the things that I'm very conscious of, and that we can be exposed to in the spirituality and wellness consciousness circles is, you can access it and you can just access it. Well, I would say some of us can, but some of us, we need help. We need a guide. Yeah. Some of us need emotional guides. I'm one of those people. Like I'm one of those people. So we need both. We need both. Absolutely. We need both. And again, Presence and I, we come from another world of early childhood. And I'm gonna say this, and that's why I'm so grateful for coming to Little Om. All the women, the extension of the Little Om family tree. Shout out to y'all, because the last 2 years has been a support network of women helping me with language, very much in the way that I noticed when I was a preschool teacher. And we need to bring that back in adulthood, because what I noticed when I was a preschool teacher is we talked about emotions. We had charts. We had charts of facial expressions, and we took photographs of the children and ourselves doing different things. That was an explicit skill. And what I noticed is the farther I got out of that world of being around little people, back out into the, quote unquote adult world, back out to NIH. And right when I showed up on the footstep of Little Om in May of 2019, by the time I found Presence in the Little Om sisterhood, and now we have a brotherhood, I realized in that moment, and so back then I was 36, I really was oscillating between 3 places: anger, joy, which on one surface someone could say, oh, that's great, she's joyful. But see, it can have a dark side where I found myself sliding to joy to avoid anger and that tone of resentment or just profound sadness. I was only oscillating between those 3 buckets. Yeah. But over the last 2 years, being part of a community where we're doing this deep, spiritual work, I've expanded my emotional vocabulary, which has been so medicinal and therapeutic. We really need to introduce and interject this back into the adult world, because I'm wondering, are other adults oscillating between, just all right, I'm content, I'm happy, or joyful in this glimpse of moment, and then I'm angry again, and I'm stuffing it, and then I'm profoundly sad. I'm crying uncontrollably on the bathroom floor, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and having like more specific language and dialogue and expression, but there's like a teaching in it, because if you have only been kept it, like allowed yourself to be in a certain place, like you don't know what you don't know. So there is a level of like, well, what are the resources, or what can I learn in terms of like what to name? I know for me, like I need that, because I need that in the beginning until I can let go of it. So it's like, I need that little crutch. Like you were saying, how we all need people that you can go to. We all need like the community for the liberation. Like it's such a paradox, like everything. We need to be able to trust and have such a deep relationship with their deepest depths of ourself, our inner voice, our inner being, which is all down in these lower chakras. But also then to rise up and wrap our arms around each other and have someone that you can call and say, I'm scared or I'm lost. Or this is what I noticed this weekend, big time in this experience I had, is I'm so comfortable in the dark, in the shadow, in the emotion, in death, in transition. Like these are the places where I spend a tremendous amount of my research, my time, my studying, my own journals, healing, trauma, sexual abuse, mental abuse, alcoholism, mental illness. Like these are things I've read about and loved to immerse myself in since I was a small child. You know, reading Girl Interrupted as a teenager, identifying with anything that was mental illness, finding the DSM and being like, this is the best book ever, you know, just loving. So what I noticed, so this weekend, I did an inner voice session for training. We have to do it with each other. My partner lives in Paris. She's amazing, amazing, amazing. Her inner voice and her inner being was so fun and light and joyful. It was like Alice in Wonderland's adventures. We were hopping and jumping and all these, oh my gosh, it was like the minute we went in. So just to contrast it, when I did my inner voice, you have to do an inner voice session with Jess Lively before you start the training. So when I did mine with Jess, I spent like the whole time crying, like releasing, releasing. You know, Eckhart calls it pain body. Jess calls them bean bags. Like we're going to come up with our own, like whatever the word is that makes sense to you. Neither of those are quite right for me or what I experience when I'm releasing, but I understand the concept of like, it's blocked, congested emotions and stuff that's living in your body and you're releasing it. And so mine would come up with tears. And then I would get like a very profound and deep truth, sort of truth bomb for my life. And then it would be quiet and like rest. And so when I was like playing with someone else's inner voice this weekend, I was like, oh, wow. As much as I experience joy, like I'm curious how this is gonna, like, what will this look like in a year if I'm hanging out with Alice in Wonderland inner voices for doing sessions and things like that. Like, of course it's gonna be contagious to me. It's like exactly the balm that my soul needs to match the natural depth and intensity that I am made of. Like I am not made of Alice. Like I have a light, joyful, playful, silly side, but it's a much smaller than the intensity of the nature of this, of like my inner being, you know? And so like, we're each different. We're all different. We don't want to compare and all try to be like special snowflakes. Like we're all our own special snowflake, right. But I'm excited. So for me, I want to draw this emotion, like I want to do like a creative project, but I want it to be all of the levels of just like pure essence and joy and lightness that are accessible also. Because, and also think of this, remember my like meditation journey very much started with Zen Buddhism. Where you wear all black and you face a wall and you talk to no one and you do nothing but sit and stare at a wall dressed in black. And even the ceremonies in Zen Buddhism, as beautiful as they are, feel like funerals. So I have always been attracted to even ritual that's extremely intense, that like is rigid, that puts you in a box, you know, that like kind of strips you of this more artistic nature. And like, obviously you can even look at my office and like my body, like I left Zen Buddhism and I'm very free with glitter and like, and that kind of creative, artistic, like how I express myself physically is very artistic and creative. But there's this whole other like silly gobbledygook, like that I don't allow. And and you know what, I used to allow it when I taught early childhood. And that was a really fun balance. But since I don't have that, and I choose to read books on death for my fun, because that truly is fun to me, I'm noticing this desire to, like, my inner voice session, she kept saying like, dance and move your arms and move your wrists. Like that was a way for me to sort of like release the depths of the intensity that were coming through my soul. So I think it's fun to push on and expand beyond what's possible for your inner body and for your subtle body, once you get to know who you are at a deeper and deeper level. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a judgment. It's just being able to. So like, I have this dream. I'm not going to do it now. Obviously, we have too many things going on, and at the same time, nothing going on, right? Little paradox. But in the future, like my future self, she's the dancing death doula. Like I'm going to be a death doula and sit by people's beds and help them transition. I know that. And I'm also going to be heavily involved in teaching and practicing dance while I do it to balance it. So like, I feel like during the day I'll teach at like a gym. I picture I'm like 60s, 70s. I've got long gray braids. I'm just like teaching dance fitness. And then, you know, someone will call and be like, so-and-so's transitioning, or I'll be at a hospice or something. And I'll sit and I'll just let that sort of love. But the key is I feel like they have to go together. It's like the masculine and the feminine, the dark and the light. And that, just that knowing in my essence and my being feels like such, I sort of like can't wait for that stage. Although I'm excited about this stage is like.
Yes. And you know what? So I feel like this is the perfect time and this year, actually all through the year, to kind of have that as themes for circles and activities, because what I see being, you know, in the NIH world right now is that, you know, we as the body has now become this, you know, people, let me say this. You said, what's living in your body? So what we just described in terms of, you know, going into the body, holding our emotions, accessing like our inner essence, and just what brings us joy, what brings us pain, what's interesting. We now more than ever need to bring these kinds of experiences to the world, because we've been so inundated with, you know, what is in my body? I don't, you know, with just the body as this threat. The body, you know, my, you know, I definitely hear every day people saying stuff like this. I don't even open the window because I don't want that, you know, or I don't, whatever it is, fill in the blank. I'm hearing a lot of people go, I don't want to. I don't want. I just cough. Is that COVID? I feel sad. I actually got a phone call. I feel sad. Is that COVID? You know, so and for whatever reason, but I believe that this could be so healing, and for what we need right now to bring us collectively out of seeing our bodies as this possible place of, oh my God, I'm dying from COVID. And that's not to take away that, yes, some of us will, some of us, even me, I might get sick and I may perish from COVID, but we also, in the meantime, as of today, April 21st.
What is today?
And we also see the contrast that, you know, having a good time in a book talk with other like-hearted individuals feels good. Can we make room for, you know, if we can do, you have to do them virtual now, you know, music and movement circles, and can we make room for still living our lives and still, you know, cultivating what is in my body today? What do I feel today? How do I want to feel? That's another perspective too that I've learned as a member of the Little Own community. Before, I didn't think I had power over my emotions or could aspire, have core desired feelings. That was a really foreign concept to me. We can go within and access our joy. We can, you know, even if, like I said, I don't mean access like go find a guru. No, I love tea. I love tea. And now, you know, again, living a Lola life, I don't shame myself for it. I get a lot of excitement out of painting and drinking my tea, even if it's for 5 minutes.
Simple.
Don't resist it.
Yeah. Can we switch gears for a minute? I want to ask you, and we've not, just so people, and if anyone's listening to this, this is like most certainly not prepped. So also I give you full permission to be like, I don't want to talk about that. How are you personally working with digesting, metabolizing the amount of Black and brown deaths, and the headlines about it, you know, or the incarceration piece? Like, on one hand, again, there's a tremendous amount of news about releasing incarcerated, there's like a bunch of different groups with petitions, and this is coming up about the Black and brown people who are incarcerated at heavier rates, and then also these protesters that are coming out who are white and not being arrested, and what would happen if they're not. So like, where do you see race in all this right now? How are you personally?
Well, you know, I see race just like it was before the pandemic, which is, you know, the dark areas of our society, and dealing with the dark ways in which this society originated is going to continue to show itself. And, you know, unfortunately, where I've been able to ground myself and also calmly communicate with not just my family members, but people from Black and brown communities who may call me or may need information. I feel grounded in this truth, which is, again, it's not the solution, but at least understanding the truth, which is this.
Pause, hold your truth. Yes, buddy. No, I will come and find you when I'm done. 15 minutes. Goodbye. Okay, now tell me your truth again.
So,
real life COVID.
Yes. So COVID-19, again, I know we've been beaten over the head, but just to level what I'm getting ready to say, COVID-19 is a very severe upper respiratory illness. Just like 6 months before, when we were in our last winter and fall season, people of color have perished at a higher rate from the flu strains that were already in the population. Just like Black women have higher prevalence death rates with breast cancer, just like Black men. So in terms of the broader, and I think some of that, working in a public health space, I'm not sure if I would be able to be grounded in this truth if I was still out in education, but being right at the epicenter of public health and research, I already did a lot of my crying and mourning that first year I worked at NIH, where every day I came through the door and saw not just African Americans, Native Indigenous peoples, you know, Native Americans, you know, in certain spots too. There are some spots where you look and Asian Americans suffer from some chronic diseases in the population. And you look over there and it's Hispanic. So I already prepped myself knowing that African Americans, because we already are at the bottom, or somewhere at the bottom in certain places when it comes to health disparities, that COVID-19 would make a terrible, just have a terrible impact in the Black population. And that's not to bypass and turn my head away from it. That actually helps me. It actually behooves me. Oh, and I'm glad we're on this call, because I forgot to tell you. Out of a whim, my school, Trinity University, started a Master of Public Health program. My dean called me and asked me to apply.
Wow.
And for those who know me or may not know me, I did some coursework and was in the health sciences, but that was me kind of like settling for less, because I was always afraid, or like, I'm not smart enough to be an MPH. MPH are for people who are, and that's tape. Well, no. To be an advocate, I said, well, you know what? When I started to look at a lot of the data when it started to come out last month, just here locally, right? When you look at DC and Baltimore, I said, you know what, Rita? Don't even tell nobody you applied yet. Just apply first and just kind of sit on it. You don't have to make a big announcement. You don't have to be afraid, but just apply. Just raise your hand. So to me, that just grounding, all of us grounding ourselves in the state of public health in the United States. Like it's not good. That's why we've had to do so much social distancing, right? So like to even widen the net beyond the conversation of health disparities and ethnic and racial minorities, the reason why we've had to social distance at such a profound rate is because our health as a whole is not good, which leaves us at large very vulnerable. So that's the truth. I mean, granted, like I said, I thank you so much for seeing me, and seeing my community. And that also has to get underpinned with, you know, and that's you and my work and our allies, that health in America are, you know, really honoring our health. That's what this COVID is showing us.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
Yeah, I think one of the things that definitely happened is like, as the headlines were coming out, I was like, duh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've been treating people less than and othering, and this is literally what happens in a system that's been so racist from the moment that we stepped on this land. So I think there was a little bit, sometimes I can get, you know, I'm so like a realist, like practical, that I'm like, yeah, what is surprising about that? Like, and where have you all been for all of this time? You know, now all of a sudden you care. Well, where, like, so I'm working with that with my own sort of anger that's not helpful, and trying to funnel it into something that is helpful, which is seeing the other side, which is right now there are a lot of people saying, whoa, I now see that, I'm reading that headline, and then saying, what can I do? So, you know, we've been hosting these, or not we, but Tina Strawn, we hosted one with her, a conversation about mass incarceration, and Brian Stevenson, like, we'd already planned that. And then we were able to be like, okay, let's, like, people are looking for something to learn more, here you go. And people are home and able, you know, I think this is a really, really, really important time to do your anti-racist work, because there's a lot of work to do, to learn concepts, to do your own, get into your blind spots, there's a course called Check Your Privilege, which is just fabulous. It gives you all the concepts. It's like, this is a time to do that work. If there's a blind spot or a gap, I'm really calling on all my white brothers and sisters right now who may be listening to that, to like, okay, so maybe dust off that why are all the Black kids sitting in the cafeteria book you've had on your shelf for 20 years, and pull it out and read it, or get stamped and read something. There's a wonderful book, How to Be Anti-Racist for Kids. I lied. It's called This Book is Anti-Racist, and it's so gorgeous. The pictures, the art, the activities, I love it. Say and I read it, but like, it's for me, I'm not shoving it down her throat. But this is such a great time to do it, because you're home, you're reading headlines, you're seeing information. And when we clear, you know, if and when, whatever this future looks like, it's the time, it's like we're getting an opportunity to step forward in a new way of understanding, with a depth of love for brothers and sisters of all colors, and really seeing at the heart of this how much, I know everyone keeps saying we're so connected, but like, what does that really mean and feel like? And what does it really look like? And what are we willing, you know, what are we willing to let go of? Where's the discomfort we're willing to have? Is it in education? Is it in stabilizing? You know, I don't know. Like, I'm not in a place where I'm like, I know all the answers. I am still learning, and I am still doing a lot of my own work in that area. So I don't know. I just think, like, I really want to encourage people to use this as an opportunity to expand their own knowledge and understanding and wisdom of how we got here. It's not a surprise.
Yes, how we got here, and
the truth about how we got here, and being open. And I'm saying it to my own self. Rita, we're not going back to normal. Stop telling yourself that. Like normal.
This is normal. You know, that tape of going back to, I'm talking to me. I'm finding myself, you know, that's why I'm so happy, you know, impeccable timing in the work, because I'm sitting with a book and some markers and crayons with that range of weather. Okay, Rita, you know, you're going to need, this is another funny story that's related to our our conversation. So last winter, that's right, because it was after the little retreat. I don't know. I was jamming with Pleasance, and Pleasance, she knows me well, so she knows when I'm worried or something's going on. Pleasance talks to me about getting in my body and doing things in my body or getting out of nature. So if this was during, it must have been part of the early winter. And she said, all right, Reed, so what's going on in your life? I need you to go outside. I need you to go to walk. And I said, it's too cold. I don't like walking in the cold. And I don't have a hat. And Pleasance goes, Rita, just buy a hat. Now, to people that's listening, that might sound like that's not that serious, but they talk about deep rootedness, right? So growing up, we never had the things we needed to be prepared for the winter. Like growing up, food, like literally food, like making sure that like we went to the grocery store before the blizzard. These things never happened. So and even like going shopping for school clothes and making sure we had the clothes for the change of season. We never had that. I never had that growing up. So I always carried this. I think that was one of my BS tapes I carried forward. Like, now y'all, come on now. I live in Rockville and I work at NIH. So why am I walking around? I don't have a hat. I needed somebody to keep it 100 with me and go, Rita, okay, I want you to go outside and enjoy. Yes, it's cold outside, my dear. Go buy your gear. So I wanted to segue this part of the conversation into, okay, you know, what we're speaking of and what we're speaking of is, okay, there will be different kinds of weather. And I think the tools and the practices that, not that we made these up, but that Little Ohm teaches, and that the community, we together, we're learning together. The Little Ohm community, these practices, the tools and concepts and conversation it's like this is our wardrobe. We're getting different things to be able to weather the different weather. You know, we dress different when it's pouring, raining outside than we do when it's sunny. Why am I saying that out loud? Because I used to walk around sad and acting like I'm not. So that's the equivalent of you're standing outside drenched and wet, and you're upset that you're drenched and wet. Well, if you would take a moment to acknowledge that, okay, it's raining outside. I got to take care of myself different. I got to put on something different. So I can still be out in the rain, but I'm not imposing more uncomfort on myself by not having the things or being willing to have things I need in the rain. That's the stuff Rita used to do. I don't know about y'all, but that's the stuff Rita used to do. You know, oh, it's raining. Oh, it's not raining. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna be strong. It's all right. I could be wet. And I'm just standing there a hot mess because I'm wet. And I'm, and I'm, so I feel like that's what it is. Today has taught me, like, wow, for our emotions, just like the weather changes, our practices and the ways that we, access our inner essence and the ways that we access embodiment, and really going back to what you said, like, what's living in my body? What is in my body right now? These are ways that we can weather the different aspects of the weather, because they're going to change. They're going to change. I can't will it to be sunny and bright every day. Mm-hmm. I can't. So just like, how many women are willing themselves to be happy and they're walking around resentful? Like how I used to do. I'm willing myself to be happy, but right now I'm actually resentful and I'm mad.
Well, and it feels like a rejection of what's really happening, or sort of like the acceptance piece. And I think that, no shade on family members or how we grew up. This is not the point. The point is that I know very few people who grew up in homes where they were asked that question or were encouraged to, whether it's emotions or whether it's the change of seasons or the change of weather. Like, we are waking up to consciousness, right? There's an awakening that's happening, that's been rippling. I just did a podcast earlier about integration and talking about how, a lot of the guides and spiritual people have been saying, like, this is the time for integration, not information. And we're leaving the era of information. And that just really feels true to me, because I don't need another book on sleep. Like, I get how important it is for lifestyle, for immunity, for my emotions, for managing life. Like, I get it. Like, I don't need more information. I actually have everything I could ever need inside of me. And I've aligned it with like I said, like the name of some like ecstatic joy, or like, just kind of pushing on like vocabulary. But the truth of it is like, we have that intersection of science and spirit that is just proving everything that a lot of the wisdom traditions have said. No longer do we even need to use the word woo-woo. It's not even an appropriate vocabulary. It's outdated because it's just now all come together to this conscious collective expansion. No, not everybody's on board, but not everybody is on that transition team in this sort of iteration in this life. And that's okay. There's no shade on that. But if you are listening to this, if you are watching, if you are awake to these concepts, there is you are being called just to be sharing this wisdom, just to be living the wisdom, just to be enjoying life. And when there is death, feeling the sadness and the grief, lighting a candle. I mean, every wisdom tradition, every religion, everyone has candles as part of their practice. It's extremely healing. Do you really need to know more? You know, when someone dies, light a candle and sit with it. Hold their flame is right there. I mean, it's the whole essence of life. And then you blow on it and it goes out. So I think that sometimes we make it a little bit, we really keep ourselves at distance from that full expression. And I just can't believe that I have you in my life and we get to have these conversations around all these different topics, and we're going to get off and I will just feel love and like loved and seen and heard, and doing that back to you, being able to have that energy exchange is just, and then today might be my last day. So like if my light goes out, I've done love, like I've done love, I've done the life thing.
The life thing. It's so funny, the life thing.
I'm saying it's like there's sort of no stone that's been unturned that I've been aware of, and that's like a really interesting way to live life. You know, I really encourage people, if you get those pain bodies or bean bags or emotional congestion, like, so interesting, what's under there? Mm-hmm. You know, what is that about? I find it fascinating, and I just feel super ridiculously appreciative that I'm alive at this time and that you're in my life and anyone who's listening is in my life, and that we have the privilege of time and space, although I keep getting interrupted by the little one, to indulge in these conversations. So
yes, and I feel equally appreciative because when I go back to who I was in May of 2018, it's like, man, I played myself. I could have been living like this, but everything happens in the right place. But thank goodness that like I found you, I found our community, and together we're like, okay, what's under that dark, what is over there? Instead of how I used to live, like sticking my head in the sand or flying to joy when I really am sad or angry. Like, I'm living my life now. I wasn't living before. I was doing a lot of hiding and suppressing, and that's not living. And not to say that a magic carpet has rolled out in my life. It's just been, but it's all good now. You know, the last 2 years feels lighter on me emotionally.
Yeah.
And Pleasance, some of y'all know there's been some heavy stuff that's happened in my life, but I don't feel as ran over and depleted like I used to feel.
Well, same. And every year it just keeps expanding. And I'm in awe of that constant. There's no end to the peeling of the layers. So I'm not going anywhere. Like there's not some place I'm going to get, and this is going to stop being the path. Like just that awareness and acceptance of the unfolding always is also like a big exhale. I'm not in a rush. Like I'm going to get off of this call right now and go take a nap.
Right.
Like this is the work for the day. This is the contribution. This is the connection. This like checks a lot of things that my heart desires, and now I can rest. And that is a real gift, because that most certainly was not my old operating system. And as we talked about the beginning of the COVID, so I'd love at some point, one of us should remember whenever this ends, not ends, and I don't even know what ends means, but if they open things back up in the area, we should talk about the reorganizing, because at the beginning of this, the first day of all this, you and I were texting and I said, I feel like everything in my life is reorganizing, and that needed like sleep and rest and not to be on Zoom and not teaching. And like, I took a break from everything. I went off social media for a few weeks, like everything. I just walked. This was before I broke my foot. So I just walked and I was just outside. And, but there has been a tremendous reorganizing of my system, the operating system. It's been like a little bit of a reset. Upgrade is like that's the word that comes to mind, just so people understand, because it's like all these other things that were kind of clouded and congested are being to the side, so that the reorganization of like, I don't want to say true mission and purpose, because that sounds a little like blah, but just the clarity of knowing who you are and what you're doing. And I've seen that in you with our conversations about your work at NIH and our work together going forward. Like, we just agreed, like, let's just do stuff that feels good. If you've got space and I've got space, it's a yes. And if no, it's a no. Like, just really tuning into the flow of the harmony, of the alignment, rather than outer expectations. We're meeting inner expectations. And it's really I've been on that like kind of spiraling journey of doing that. And now all of a sudden with this, it's like, oh, that's it. This is it. Pay what you can offerings, death conversations, early morning mind body medicine skills, like just really things that just feel completely aligned and really effortless. And someone called me last week and was like, I just can't believe how much you're working right now. Are you okay? Like how much you're writing and spewing out. And I'm literally like, I spend 80% of my time sleeping, like in bed, listening to music or a podcast or reading. Oh my God, I've read so many books. My actual life is so chill. It's just when I get the energy to work, I like sit up and I'm like, I write an email, it takes 5 minutes, I press send, I go back to sleep, or I go back to lay down on the floor. I mean, my foot is broken. I lay on the floor like 80% of the day.
Right.
And what I was saying is like, I don't need to prove to you that I'm not really working, but it's so interesting or like working like 80 hours a week or something. It's just an interesting play and push. And so that reorganizing of like, what does it look like to be in this space? How much, like I have the game of like, I have money in my business checking that's like not a ton of money. And I'm like, it will be fine.
I have enough.
I trust it. I trust it. And I'm not trying to be like head in the sand about money or Mel or my privilege. Like I'm also communicating to Mel, hey, I'm really taking care of our family a lot and I'm not able to work, like, especially with the AU stuff. I don't know that I'm going to go back in the fall, if we even go back. Like the whole income, I probably am not going to, because I'm one of the last people. So do I file for unemployment? Like there's just a lot of those questions, and I'm just like relaxing into it. I'm just completely trusting that it will all work out. I'm being inspired by what feels true and good, and that will be okay. It always has, it always will.
It always will. And given where we came from,
it always has, it always will.
Yes. This is working. And again, my word of the, for all of you, a practice that we do is we choose a word of the year. And last year, my word was truth. And then to build on it, my word this year was trust that I picked. And that's what I've been rolling with whenever I need to kind of have a, what do I want to cultivate in me? I want to trust myself. I want to trust the divine. I want to trust the ones that I love, that at the end of the day, they know what's best when they're blowing my phone up asking me about what Dr. Fauci said. It's just, and not that I'm putting down Dr. Fauci, but what I'm saying is, with the people, when you talk about, okay, people want more information. It's like, Rita, trust that you will have what you need when you need it.
And things may have to change for lots and lots of people and businesses and people, again, it's not luck. Like I have access to credit because I'm white. I understand that. And I'm a business owner for 13 years. So I have levels of access to credit that a lot of poor Black people don't have. So I'm not living in la la lands. And I'm also very, very thoughtfully checking in with people to ask if they need help with that access to the credit. People who I know who are in businesses, hey, do you need this? You know, I might be able to get it. Like just being able to reach out that arm, because I do have that level of privilege. And I'm also not in a business or profession that's ever made millions of dollars. And I'm not going to be, I mean, hold on, it's limitless possibility. So it could happen. I'm open to it. It's not guiding me. It's just this exchange of energetics. And I try not to get in everybody else's lane, just provide a tremendous amount of support in any way that I can to anyone who needs it, is the point. And I saw that you had told me you did a like a money retreat, an abundance retreat for yourself, which is so beautiful. And it was so beautiful, the candles and the cards, and like just loving the relationship that I have with that limb of my life right now, even though the same flow is not coming as it was before. Like, it will change, and that's part of the nature of the change. And so that's again, just talking to myself, not other people, is like, that's been fun to play with, is like, okay, I could do this and be really scared. I could do this in hoard. I could do this in scarcity, or I could do this in just total trust and love. And I've seemed to have toilet paper and tons of food, and like, I have everything I need. I have a very, very, very privileged life, and I completely understand that. And I try to give in many ways, emotionally, physically, you know, so
Absolutely.
I don't know, that's the reorganization piece just feels so different now.
Yes. And same for me, right? I mean, I don't know, a lot of 38-year-old single Black women from Southeast living on Rockville Pike. I don't see a lot of them. I mean, so what I'm saying is, I as I was standing in line outside waiting at Trader Joe's last Sunday, I said, wow, Rita, you know, you revel in the fact that, you know, I'm just keeping 100, like, you made it out the hood, Rita. Like, so, you know, just see the good in that, you know, see the good in, you know, because you were able to, you know, transcend essentially poverty. Now you're able to hold space and be a model of health for African American women. Be a model of, you know, not perfect health, don't get me wrong, not perfect health, but be a model for
You're
living.
Human.
You know, just be, you know, so definitely I do want to acknowledge that, even the contrast in the spectrum of privilege, like, in seeing the good. I have been obsessed with this cup. I got it at the Target by your house. It was so funny. One day I was coming from somewhere around there, and I picked up this cup, seeing the good. And that's what you know, just seeing the good, see the good. Like right now, this connection that we're having, it's good. You know, you had posted a picture of Milo on Instagram, and I thought the picture was so cute. And I just reveled in that image. I mean, little and small, just reveling in seeing what is good, you know, having space for both. It's good to be informed. It's good to be informed, but I love how you said right now, let's settle and let's savor the integration. Let's savor what we do have. Let's savor what's possible. Like I said, we all, you know, this New Earth Book Club that we're doing, it's not that Pleasance has the answer of where we're going, or anyone has the answer.
I don't know.
But we're just exploring that, and being part of, showing up to be part of the transition team. And to me, again, because I typically enjoy walking the path with others. To me, that circle helps me have my undergird trust, and I'm okay with that. I don't know the future. I don't know. You know, I don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my dear. Well, I'm off. I'm going to do tea time.
Have fun. Okay. Love you. Talk to you soon.
Too. Kiss the tribe and animals.
I will.
Okay, later, Gator.
Bye. Love you.
Love